I actually was just scrolling through Strava mindlessly and saw a run by Phil called "Got Bit by a Snake."
I asked the Ambo, do you mind if I just update my Strava quickly?
Welcome everyone to the Gary Word Trail Running Podcast. This is our first episode. We are locals up here in Gary Word country, and all three of us have run the Grampians Peaks Trail, miler, solo stage, and 50k respectively. We have also participated in the stage team relay of this event. And when we did this, we were really hungry for information about. We wanted to learn more from runners who had run these trails, and it's like, well, maybe we could actually provide some information to others about exactly that.
Yeah, I think it dawned on us there's a lot of people talking about walking the trail, and I think when it was built, it was designed as a walking trail, and there's a lot of information about hiking and camping and sleeping on the trail. But yeah, as you said, Paddy, there's, we were all like, hang on, how do you run the thing?
Yeah, and I guess for us, quite privileged in the fact that we get to live here and we have access to the trails from our front doors and get to experience the magic that is Gary Word and that special connection to country that it provides us. So being able to share that with others is a really important thing as well, and just some of the knowledge we've built of the trail from our time spent on it.
Yeah, so if you're listening because you want to learn more about the trails generally, or if you're considering entering the event, or maybe you've already done the event and you just want to relive the glory of the Gary Word trails, then this is probably for you.
I think even if you're, if you're listening from afar and you, I don't know, if you're just into trail running and running, hopefully there's something in there. I don't know. We're sort of, I suppose we're three running nuts. We could probably talk about it forever. We just like getting out there and getting our feet dirty.
And maybe just quickly about the format of this podcast is today's episode is actually going to be about the first of 12 sections, and we plan to cover each one of the sections with its own specific episode, because the trail does actually change a lot throughout the course.
I think that's a really good point, Paddy. The trail, it's 100, it's basically goes from north to south across the Grampians National Park, and it just so happened that it landed on 162 kilometres, or bang on a mile. Yeah. It consists of 12 different legs, and I think that's the intent of this podcast, is to cover each of those 12 legs in detail to give people a bit of further information about what to expect out on those sections of the trail.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe just to introduce ourselves. My name is Pat, or Paddy, and my running background typically revolves around the Gary Word trails. So I am a local here. I run the trails all the time. And when the GPT event came out, myself and Phil and Mark decided to do a stage team relay. So we did that in year one. And then in the second year, which was 2024, I attempted the miler, and got about 115 kilometres in, when unfortunately it had to be called off because of extreme heat. But that's kind of Gary Word for you, and I'm looking forward to doing it again in 2025.
And how did it feel to nearly finish the miler, Paddy?
I sort of was really struggling for the first 12 hours. I was in a world of hurt. I mean, I won't go through that now. Maybe we can cover that in a later episode. But when it was called, when the race was cancelled, I was actually feeling fantastic, and I was bitterly disappointed initially, and then when I understood what was going on with heat stress and people, in a really bad way. I think it was totally the right call of the race organisers to pull the pin at that point.
I must admit, I did see you at the Yarram Gap aid station, and you looked fantastic. you looked 100% better.
He's a good-looking guy.
What well, we're not debating that right now, but in comparative, he looked, you looked in really good shape, and like you had it in the bag, and a lot better than most of the stage solo runners that were coming through as well. So,
Paddy, where were you coming at the time?
At the time, I was 11th overall.
Yeah, cool. It's a funny one because I always reflect on that. Is that there were a lot of people behind you who had been, obviously running for the same amount of time, but had a lot longer to go. There was a lot of damage being done behind, the field and towards the tail end of the field. And I think that's where the race organisers had to pull the pin. There are a lot of people. The people up your end, the pointy end, are obviously stronger runners as well. But I mean, it's the beauty of trail running, isn't it? That you got everyone doing it, and all these different abilities and experiences.
Out of the 132 starters, even by the time the race was cancelled, 48 had already pulled out due to heat stress and other heat-related complexities. And so you're right, though. Like, there's a lot of people with a lot of distance still to go. So if it had continued, I don't know where that 48 number would have increased to, but it's a lot of the field.
It was going up. Yeah.
In my opinion, it was 100% the right decision, and I think we felt that from the other competitors and others and things as well. But that just adds to the majesty and of Garryword. Like last year, we had thunderstorms. There was 60 mil of rain wild. In a couple of hours. Had to pause the race because of lightning, and then this year cancelled because of extreme heat. That's just Garryword for you, and that's the part of this country.
And maybe enough about me. What about you guys?
Okay, yeah.
We both looked at each other.
Mark, yeah. Love trail running. I think for me, living here and being able to trail run in this country, it's a very privileged thing to do. I think the fact you can, from waking up and actually being able to get a few hours in before work in this landscape on these trails is a pretty. We're pretty lucky to have that as an option. I really just like the one of the things for me is those health benefits of spending time on the trails. Like for me, if I spend 90 minutes on a trail, I just feel like I've got whatever the day throws at me, especially out here, running on in this country. And it's just such an underrated activity in terms of the benefits it gives you. And I'm really keen to just share part of that journey through this podcast series. Yeah. Phil?
Can you talk a bit more about your running background? You did pretty well in the... where'd you come in the race last year?
It was a massive surprise. So
you smashed it.
Yeah. So I did I moved up from the So as Paddy mentioned, the group of us did the stage relay the year before, and that to me was I thought a bit of a stretch in terms of where I was from running, being able to do. So you're running sort of between 12 to 20k a day, but quite hard through the trails 4 days back to back, and I was really happy with how that went. And then this year I'd signed up for the 50k because I thought, I was considering. I know Paddy was trying to twist my arm to do the miler, and I couldn't grasp the concept of, from where I was, having never run an ultra before, a couple of Maras, to do a miler. It felt like too much of a stretch. I'd like to come back to this in a future episode because I know we've reflected on this, Paddy, a lot. It's like, well, is a 5k to 20k. We know that people running 5ks can easily do a half. You could run a half. Is that the same concept from going from a marathon to a miler?
Yeah.
And we tested that, and we'll come back to that though.
Yeah,
but I guess
I think when we've got an idea to have a special guest on in a few episodes' time, Dave Willis, and he's the one who had already done all the ultras, and he gave me the advice, hey, where you're at, it's not that much to step up to a miler. And even though this miler has been called like one of the hardest milers in Australia, he actually wasn't wrong. Like, anyway, we'll get into that at a later episode. But Yeah, I think you, Mark, doing the solo stage and ending up 6th, like massive achievement.
Yeah, it was a total surprise. Like, yeah, I was pretty stoked actually. So I guess that was where I was going. At the time signed up for the 50. Didn't think the miler was an opportunity, but you'd been twisting my arm, and I'm like, oh, maybe I could do the stage solo. I kind of thought of this. I'm like, oh, I did a little training or a little, training block in August, start of August, just to see. Did the 4-day back-to-backs to see if I thought it was achievable, and then I signed up for the stage solo, and realistically, it was always about finishing. And then over those couple of months in the trail, I know we did a lot of training together, Paddy, and we were working through it, and started doing those back to consecutive days running and things. And I kind of thought, maybe doing the stage across 24 hours was achievable. But then when the forecast came this year, and it was the week forecast out, and it was like high 30s, 4 days straight. I'm like, well, that's out the window, you know what I mean? But what I really found great about this year's run was I think there was a definite benefit to home ground advantage of understanding the trails, knowing what's coming up, and then being able to manage it like that. But just the people as well, the other competitors, and just having a really great time. Like, everyone's just so relaxed and just out there to have a really good time. Phil,
Just for anyone who's not aware of what a stage solo is, can you describe what the race actually involves? So you got 164 odd kilometres, but how does it break it up?
No. So we, what they do is they break up. So the GPT 100 consists of 6 different formats. The main event is the miler, which is the continuous end-to-end race.
The main event's the 50K.
And the of course, I'm going to ask you about the 50K in a minute, Phil. So the stage solo is another event you can do, but you do it over 4 days. So you run the miler over 4 days. So you do, of these, we're talking about, there's going to be 12 different segments. So you run 3 of those each day over the 4 days, and it sort of consists of between 50Ks to 35, covering those each day. So it's a pretty hard format. You got to really make sure your nutrition and recovery and things was something I really had to learn and dial in to be able to support it. But yeah, no, I was pretty stoked with the just the whole vibe of the event and getting through it. Now, I do want to ask you though, because you did the 50K this. I'm going to throw to you, Phil, in a sec, but you made a big call. You called 5 hours this year for the 50. So can you describe a bit of your background, Phil?
I set an A goal. Is that what you call it? Like I had my A goal, my B goal, my C goal.
Your seagull?
It's not a seagull.
I must admit, I didn't have a seagull for this race, did you, Pat?
That's in the nutrition episode. Didn't eat any seagulls. No, so I had high hopes for the 50K. My background, I suppose, in running is that I'm a road runner, really. But I live part-time in Halls Gap and part-time in Melbourne. And I suppose my main race is the marathon. And I've just got this mad itch to run more trails and run ultras and that sort of stuff.
Well, you had done a PB in the marathon in 6 weeks prior to this event as well.
Yeah, I had run a decent time at Melbourne Marathon in October, and I was stoked. Ran a 2:43 at Melbourne Marathon. So I was really happy with that. I didn't quite get the time I wanted at Melbourne, but it was really interesting, and I think the temperature came into it as well as just the time between the two races. I could feel that the Melbourne Marathon was still in the legs on that 50K day. So yeah, it was. I had an absolute ball. It was a really, really fun day. As you guys have touched on, it was stinking hot, 35 degrees, and here I was to try and run 50Ks as hard as I could. through, I think it's just over 2,000 meters of vert, and on pretty technical trails, which we'll get to more detail of that.
Where did you finish in the 50k?
I came fifth, I think it was.
Whoa, yeah,
pointy
end.
I was happy with it. I was really happy with the fifth. Yeah, my absolute, I won't call it A goal or B goal or C goal anymore, because
I like the seagulls.
Do you like the seagulls?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm going with from now on.
We're going with
was
that.
a seagull?
So my first goal, I suppose, was to run top 10, and then I think it was after that run. I think I was hoping to, if I ran really, really well, to podium, and then maybe somewhere in there was to run under 5 hours. The heat meant that no one ran under 5 hours. So that kind of got me off the hook. Didn't need to test that hypothesis. But then I think my overall goal was to just have a ton of fun, and I think I really succeeded on that one.
That is amazing, and I reckon that's the reason a bit why we're here. I want to hear from Paddy about this, because I want to hear about Gary Word trail running. So can you describe a bit of that, Paddy? Like what is Gary Word trail running? What's it about? What's it really there to do?
Let's start with what Gary Word trail running is, and then we can talk about how it got started. So what it is, it's actually a registered non-profit entity. We've got a committee, all locals. There's 7 of us. Our goal is to have a platform where visiting trail runners can link up with local trail runners, and we can get out and experience the trails. As locals, we know what the trails are like. We really genuinely believe, for technical trail running, that this is the epicenter of trail running in Australia. If you're into technical trail running, you just need to get here. Like, it's incredible. We
Definitely.
live it every day. So the whole purpose of Gary Word trail running is to help people experience that and really sort of get it out there, because the trails, a lot of the trails have been here for a long time, but then we've got the Grampians Peaks Trail, the 162k trail that we raced on last year and the year before. It's actually only 3-4 years old. And I just don't think the majority of the trail running community has actually found it yet.
And I guess that's right. And a big $30 million investment into the trail from the state government during that time to build it. And the intent was to build a world-class trail. The Grampians Peaks Trail, they've actually built it. It doesn't avoid any peaks. They've made it. It's not like they've taken the easiest path option.
We're
it
messing
is
about.
tough. Yeah, it's good.
I guess the genesis of Gary Word trail running is I actually only moved up here in 2021. Before that...
Blow-ins.
Yeah, blow-ins. Before that, I didn't know that much about the trails up in the Grampians, up in Gary Word. I sort of had a few ideas. I'd done one event up here, the Wonderland Run, which was great. And got to experience a little bit of the trails. I had no idea of the network of trails up here. So
it's an absolute playground.
Oh, it's amazing. But I really felt the need to have a reference for people that were like me, like Pat in 2019, to say, here's a whole selection of some of the trail running loops you can do. So that was kind of where the social media thing started. So, if you scroll down on Gary Word Trail Running's Instagram, you'll see the whole bottom 80% is just a whole selection of loops that you can do, rated green, blue, or black, depending on the level of technicality. And that's where it started. Then it evolved into a weekly Friday morning run, which really brought in a lot of locals. Then we do ad hoc runs on the weekends. And it's actually amazing, the response that we've had, particularly in the past few months.
My favourite thing about I reckon the best thing, it's a really great initiative, gives people a place. But the best thing about Gary Word Trail Running, I reckon, is the Friday morning runs. If you can get through 5Ks at a pretty cruisy pace, probably 8-minute Ks on the flat, it's open to anyone. So what it does is it actually enables trail running, which I remember the first trail run I ever went on. I was like, this is a pretty daunting thing. I'm going to run on this technical trail. I don't know what's coming up, what's going on, and it takes time to build that confidence. And the fact that on the Friday morning it's accessible, there are others there. There's no pace. All paces are welcome, and it's a really welcoming environment. So encourage anyone coming up to get involved in those Friday morning runs because they're really welcoming. It's just a really great introduction for people to the world of trail running.
So good. And that I mean, hats off to you, Paddy, for heading it up. But that Instagram is an absolutely fantastic resource. As in, is exactly what we needed coming to the area, like moving to the area, is you need somewhere that you can go to and say, right, like as a runner, what do I do to find the different spaces? And you've done well with, even listing the elevations, the technicality of each one, and really sort of knuckling down and giving people the information that they need when they come to town and they want to go for a run. And I mean, obviously everyone here is personable and lovely. So, I'm sure that anyone coming to town could also just reach out, and there's someone wanting to go for a run at any stage.
Yeah, it's funny how it evolved. Like, definitely it was just a reference initially, and then just found there was this huge demand of people that didn't necessarily, identify as trail runners to suddenly join us on a Friday morning. And we did then, as a committee, it's not just me anymore, like as a committee, we decided we're going to be like the friendliest, most welcoming running community like in all the land. And that was, I think any visitors can hopefully can attest to our success on that. You've
already achieved that. What do you do next?
This episode we're going to actually cover the first sector of 12 of the Grampians Peaks Trail, the GPT. I do have some stats here about the first sector. When we're talking about sectors, we're going in the order north to south of the GPT or Grampians Peaks Trail. First sector is actually, I don't want to say easy, but relatively easy compared to the other sectors. It's 15.7 kilometres long.
That start is amazing.
The start is fantastic.
You go up, you start, and you go up this feature, colloquially known as flat rock. It's just this massive, as you can imagine, big flat rock. And it really introduces you to the sandstone of the Garryword ranges. So there's 4 main distinct ranges in Garryword, and you kind of start heading up this flat rock. And what happens, you head up there for about 400 or 500 metres, and you get to the top. And especially if you go up towards the sunset, and you look across and you get this view over what's called Taipan Wall, which is a really world-renowned rock climbing site. And just the colours and the distinct colours you get from this Garryword sandstone is just amazing. So that's how the trail starts. And it really is a really great setting for what you're going to experience over the next 160 Ks.
It's a great setting, but I would also say it's quite a brutal way to start.
Brutal
to start a long race. Yeah. Like, I mean, particularly flat rock, you literally start on this rock, and that continuous rock goes for the first 500, 600 meters.
Yeah. Yep.
And on an angle, it looks. Sort of, if you didn't see the surrounding trees, you'd just assume you're on the moon.
That Taipan Wall is seriously excellent. It's stunning. But I remember on the day starting the 50K, you just can't go fast up that rock slab. Like, as in, it was, the body wasn't warmed up to that kind of trail, and I could feel the right calf immediately. I was just like, this is going to be a schlep. Maybe
we should just talk about our respective approaches in the 2024 GPT 100 event.
Nice.
So Phil doing the 50K, Mark doing the solo stage, me doing the miler. I bet we all started and approached flat rock very differently.
For me, it was a total unknown. Was starting off, I knew it was going to be really hot, and And I was really worried because I got rhabdomyosis a few years ago, first time I tried to run the Melbourne Marathon, and I really had avoided running in the heat ever since. So I'd done no training in the heat, and I'm like, it's going to be hot for these 4 days. And I was concerned. So I actually went out really conservatively for that reason. So I hiked all the way up Flat Rock, and also probably all the way to the summit of Gunnagogo. Anyway, so I hiked up there and then got into a bit of routine. But Phil, the 50K, the stage solo started at the same time as the 50K race on the Thursday morning. I must admit I did not see you, so I assume that you took a slightly different approach.
Yeah, it was a funny one for me. I was trying to sort of jostle my way up to the front, but I also knew that the start is brutal, and I was like, you know what? And I saw a lot of people go out quite quick. People were running up the slab, and sort of knew that they would be very quickly walking. Not to be too smug, but I was just like, you know what? I need to focus on my own race right now.
Benefit of local knowledge.
And I suppose that's one of the things you hear a lot of the elite runners say is, you focus on your own race, and run to your own abilities and skills and that sort of thing. So yeah, I found, I sort of started going off with everyone. The adrenaline at the start of a race is big. 50K is a weird distance as well. You're not sure whether you should be running fast. At points you are going to be running fast. But then it's a trail, and this 50K is brutal.
I suspect that Phil was actually running flat out most of the way until his Melbourne Marathon legs caught up with him, and then he had to go slow. But that's just my hunch.
I would back that hunch, I reckon, Paddy. And what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly was conscious that heading into the miler, I hadn't actually run more than about 60 Ks or 65 Ks was my longest run to that point. And knowing that it's not the easiest miler, I was definitely conscious of not expending all my energy in the first 600 meters. So I really made a conscious effort not to get wrapped up in the hype, and I started with the poles out. So I just trekking poled up Flat Rock, and I'm so happy I did.
Was that a conscious decision just to save the legs early on?
Yeah, like I just know, for me, knowing Flat Rock, I know that could completely wreck me for the next, however long, like for hours. If I just kind of went for it, you sort of get into that start line vibes, and you see all these people around you, and you get, you think, oh yeah, I'm a chance for this, like you sort of, and I just didn't want to do that. So I sort of really wanted to start with poles out, just trekking up that Flat Rock.
And how many others at the start? Do you remember how many others had the poles from the start?
Yeah, well, I did do a fair bit of analysis, because that's what I'm into afterwards. And I noticed. Well, not so much poles, but I did notice that up Flat Rock there was probably about 30 people in front of me by the time I got to the top of Flat Rock, which was really interesting because obviously, I finished with 10 people in front of me. So a lot of the 30, of course, heat was a massive issue, but I also wonder, if people had just started a little bit more conservatively, there probably still would have been more people in front of me, at the end.
What was the temperature when you started on that? Because you started on the Friday at midday.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere between 35 and 37 at the start.
Pretty chill.
Yeah.
That's the temperature in the shade, and that there is no shade. You're on exposed rock, radiating the heat back at you.
There was a lot of radiant heat. I really noticed it on those first few stairs, and maybe we can sort of progress past Flat Rock.
Yeah.
Because you go up Flat Rock for about 600 meters, and then you get a bit of a reprieve where you go down. You've got a little bit of shade. And then you just get chucked into another climb straight away to go right up to Mount Stapleton. But yeah, you've just got to go conservative all the way up for the first 2 Ks.
I think that's right. Now, I reckon that first start to that segment's definitely the hero piece. You climb about 300 meters and go up. You got Flat Rock under, the views onto Taipan Wall, up under, heading up Stapleton. But What the trail actually does is you don't get to summit Mount Stapleton. Now, if I was going on a recreational trip out, it's not far to detour off the Peaks Trail to get to something. And you've actually got some amazing features up there. You get up to an intersection, the main trail turns right, but when you get up, you can turn left and you kind of climb up, and there's a massive cave, that section. So you got this cave, and then you can continue up, and there's a bit of a false summit, so you get up the top. But then to get up to the actual summit is a bit of a rock scramble, so it's probably not for everyone. But it's not overly technical either. You can kind of, it's not a rock climbing, but it is, to get up to that summit, and it's worth doing. Now, that area in the north of the park, there's loops and other experiences up there.
Maybe I can talk about some of the loops, because we, as locals, we often we'll just head up by ourselves. We don't want to take two cars. So we would park, say, at the Mount Zero car park. And from there, you can actually do, the first 4 kilometres of the Grampians Peaks Trail. Then you get to a trail intersection. If you wanted to do the GPT, you go straight, but you can turn right there, and that actually does the Mount Stapleton Loop Trail, and that loop takes you back to the GPT just at the top of Flat Rock, and from there you can navigate back to the car park. The whole loop is around about 9 Ks. From there, if you want more trail, you can always go up to Mount Zero itself, which is heading north from the car park, and that's quite technical, but it's a fun little section. And then, of course, if you're there recreationally, I would recommend, just if you haven't seen Hollow Mountain and the Gilgan Manja shelter as well, it's incredible. That's you just have to drive up the road about 600 meters or something.
Yeah, Hollow Mountain's one of my favourite little day walk areas in the park. You walk through the start of Summerday Valley, which is a really popular climbing site up the Hollow Mountain, which, aptly named, you can actually walk up through the middle of the mountain, and the views from the top up there are amazing. Also got some world-renowned bouldering sites and things like that. So it's really special. In terms of the rock art sites, the Garryword area actually has 90% of Victoria's rock art in this greater area, which is
it's just amazing.
It is. It's such a spiritually and culturally significant area that people don't get to experience. And it's one of the few areas in Victoria I've been where you actually feel that real connection to country, like that spiritual connection. When you're here, you do feel it, and it's it's
something we often talk about while we're running. There's something about it that's
is it humbling?
Yeah, humbling, and it's just sort of this sense that people have been in this country for an incredibly long time. As far as human history goes, it's the bulk of it, and we're just here for this speck of time and privileged enough to be able to run these trails.
I mean, you got here in 2021, Pat. So
yeah, that's right. When I say speck of time, it's a very small speck. And now, as we head further south down the trail, do you want to talk a bit about that, Mark?
Yeah, so once you pass the Stapleton Loop, there's a great section, really runnable. So a lot of the trail you're on sort of rock slabs and really technical trail, but as you head south, sort of past the Stapleton Loop, there's a really runnable section through to what's called Coppermine Track for those Ks, and it's really fun. A little slight descent, but great. Really great flow, and it's been built really well. There was a small fire there in 2024, and I think, even running through seeing this landscape, which is a really fire-prone landscape. The bush all been, it's evolved to need fire to regenerate and continue to grow. But watching the grass tree spikes flower and the rehabilitation from this, it just adds to the dynamic of some of that running. So you continue south. So at about the 6K mark, 6.5K mark, you pass what's called Coppermine Track. Then there's a bit of a slight climb back up to, I guess, an escarpment, but it's kind of ridgeline running. So what you'd get to do is for the next couple of Ks, is probably about a 2K of a kind of ridgeline running where you're running on that sort of western edge of a small escarpment, and you get some great views back towards Mount Stapleton and south towards what's called Gar and the Mount Difficult Range. Then there is an absolutely awesome descent that is really hard not to bomb and cook your legs, but into the Barragar hiker camp. It is tons of fun. So that's a few K. You probably get a 3K descent, which should go down a couple of 100 metres, probably. Yeah,
it's funny because I remember you mentioned this descent after I'd been down that track a few times, and I'd never actually realised that it was this continuous descent, because it's quite bushy. There's a lot of obstacles. It's pretty techy, and maybe I'd just been stumbling over the trail, but you were like, oh yeah, this descent's coming up, and then when you realise it's there, man, it was just so much fun. Like you're really trying not to do yourself an injury, but
but you just really, really want to do yourself an injury. It is fun. That's what sums up a bunch of these segments. You just can't wipe the smile off your face.
And then after that, you come out on that rocky ridge.
I really like that ridgeline run. The one, so you come after you come through the hiker camp at about the 11K, 11K mark, you get to Barrier Hiker Camp, and then you got about 5 to go to get to that next main trailhead and finish the segment. But kind of a bit of an ascent, probably a 50 metre total ascent to get up, and then you're kind of on this another ridgeline running for probably the majority, like it's sort of nearly a 4K ridgeline road. It seems to go for a while, but it is a really fun ridge. That's the difference between the northern part of the park and I guess the start of the Mount Difficult range.
Yeah, then you have this nice downhill. It's pretty cruisy, pretty flowy, not so technical to get back to cross the road, and then you're at the Gar trailhead, which is the end of that first sector, and in the race, that's where the first aid station is.
Yeah, there's quite a camber to a lot of that rock across that ridge line as well. It's something to be wary of if you're running it, if you're racing it. One of your legs will generally be lower than the other. Really interesting, because when you come off a lot of those ridge lines, you find that your cadence is a bit messed up when you're running. And so then when you do hit a bit of the winding downhill section, your body takes a little bit of time to adjust.
Would you say that your left leg has to be longer than your right?
In that section, definitely.
But then you sort of make up for it a bit later in the second section.
In the second segment, yeah.
So if you're after symmetry and you can hold out for 30 Ks, then you're fine.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
So how would you suggest, if people were coming up and wanted to run the first section, what do you think the best option is? So like how would you do it as an individual, or would you try and connect with a few others and do a car shuffle? Or
yeah, I guess logistically, if you're coming up by yourself and driving your own car, logistics is a little bit difficult, unless you're happy with an out and back run. I don't know. I don't like just out and back runs.
The car shuffle is, I know it's a necessary evil. I think it makes the run a lot more fun. It seems like a pain in the ass, but every time we've done a car shuffle versus me just going out, I mean, obviously with a car shuffle, it guarantees you got a running buddy, so that's a good thing.
And obviously a well thought out playlist.
Oh yeah, you need some 90s hip hop to really get you going.
I do know we did that car shuffle a couple of years ago, Phil, with Dave King, going back probably 3 years. But I do remember it was a big, like the car shuffle was nearly equal to the time we spent on the trail. By the time it was a bit of logistics to it as well. I don't know. I've done the section a couple of times where I parked at the Gar trail, so the end of the section, and kind of headed north and back. But it makes for a longer run. Or someone organise a pickup drop off is always handy as well.
It is a little bit of a harder section to loop, like unless you're doing that 9K loop that we spoke about before.
Stapleton loop can be done, yeah.
And there's a few options for looping a little bit of the south part of it, but we'll probably talk about that in the next episode. The other option is there is a shuttle that runs every day from 9 a.m. leaving Halls Gap, and it goes to the Mount Zero car park, so you can actually get to the start of the section. It also can go to the Gar trailhead as well. Sometimes the issue is with trail runners, certainly for me, I definitely want to be out on trail for an hour or so before 9 a.m. So it's a little bit late for me, but if you're driving your own car, you can always take your own car up there, run back to Halls Gap or wherever, and then get the shuttle the next day to go pick up your car.
Just get your car, yeah.
I know one of the key things on the trail is where Garryword is located. We're fairly remote in the scheme of things. We're about 3 hours west of Melbourne. It's a mountain range coming out of the plains. Phone reception, we definitely don't have phone reception across the whole trail. Would encourage people to have a Telstra SIM who are coming out here.
Yeah, Telstra. I have a Telstra SIM. I can't comment on other providers, but I understand that it's patchy with Telstra, but I understand it's pretty woeful with anything else. And we're not sponsored by Telstra here. It's just a reality. It's just a reality of. But we're very open to offers.
Yeah, Asics. Are you out there?
Phone reception wise, I find the first section in relative terms is actually not too bad because there's a big phone tower up there. But keep in mind, when you get to the end of this section at the Gar trailhead, there's literally no reception.
Yep.
If you're meeting someone there, make prior arrangements that doesn't rely on phones. I certainly always carry a snake bandage. I always carry my phone, make sure it's charged. I actually carry a satellite communication device. Something similar, not an EPIRB, but very similar.
What have you got? You got the Garmin.
I've got a Zoleo.
Oh, Zoleo, yeah, cool.
Yeah, and then Phil, you're certainly qualified to talk about this topic. Do you want to talk through that and perhaps talk about the measures that you took in advance so you could be ready for this situation?
I have danced with the Danger Noodle. Is that what you call it? a cheeky dalliance. Yeah, the measures that you should take. So what Pat's referring to, I suppose, is. I did get bitten by a brown or tiger snake.
You've earned yourself the resident nickname on our locals trail running chat of snakebait. So I think you earned it though.
I did earn it. I did. Got bit, got stung. Yeah, it was running along down in Devil's Garden kind of area where the GTR went the other day. But it a bit of an electric shock and 2 little bloody spots on my ankle. At the time, really quite irresponsibly, I didn't have a phone, didn't have a snake bandage. No one actually knew where I was. It was
you're running a management road to avoid having to carry any of those things.
Exactly. Yeah, well, exactly right. I spent a night in hospital with some antivenom and
just before we get to the hospital, I should just talk about how I learnt about Phil getting bitten by a snake. I actually was just scrolling through Strava mindlessly and saw a run by Phil called "Got Bit by a Snake."
Oh yeah,
and then I immediately gave Phil a call and I was like, "Are you all right, mate?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no, going all right. Just just in an ambulance at the moment." Yeah,
I think we've got the name for the podcast.
I think I literally was there in the ambulance on the way to Horsham Hospital as I was like, you know what? I asked the Ambo, do you mind if I just update my Strava quickly?
So tell us about so you got bit by a snake. So tell us about what you did what were the measures after getting bit that you took?
And also what you should have done.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're talking about shopping lists of things you shouldn't do when trail running. So as I mentioned, I didn't have a snake bandage. I didn't have my phone. I didn't tell people where I was. So I spent probably the better part of half an hour shitting myself.
That's important.
Yeah. And that's I reckon that's what any responsible medico would prescribe. But yeah, I made a bunch of wrong assumptions. I assumed that snake venom was carried through the blood. So I looked at my watch and my heart rate was still over 100, and I thought, you know what, if I'm envenomated, that stuff's going around my body. So, and apparently it's your lymphatic system, not your bloodstream. So the advice is to just stop. The advice is just to not move, for as long as it takes. which I didn't do. I didn't know that advice at the time. There was a house that was probably 500 metres away from where I got bitten. I went over to it, sort of semi-hopping, semi-walking, just, I don't know, not sure what the hell I was doing, sort of half expecting to collapse at any stage. There's no one at the house, but I was 500 metres closer to the main road. So I spent a bit more time standing there not knowing what to do. Eventually, I did just decide to get as close to the road as possible, thinking that would improve my chances of survival. All this is on Strava. There was a run home after the... and ended up back at the house, back at my house, and then, called the ambos from there.
Sure. And so that's exactly what you're meant to do, yeah?
No,
Sorry.
Absolutely not.
It's funny because I've often thought about that situation where you don't have phone reception. Maybe you've got a snake bandage. You get bitten by a snake. It's comforting to know that typically for Australian snakes in this area, their fangs aren't long enough to get into the bloodstream, so they're in lymphatic system. So as long as you don't move, in theory, you might be okay.
Yeah.
We're not doctors. Like, I should just preface this. Like, don't take this as medical advice. We're just talking about mainly what we shouldn't do.
and so now I suppose, like, on reflection, now I have a bunch of precautions that I do take. Snake bandage, obviously one. Also know how to use it. I'm lucky in that I was bitten, so I did get bandaged at the advice of the ambos over the phone before they arrived. So I've seen it done to me, but look up. I mean, as I said, I'm not going to tell you how to bandage a snake wound over this podcast. But yeah, carry a snake bandage, a phone, Telstra SIM, ePerb, whatever. The latest models of iPhone, and I'm not sure about Samsung and stuff, but they do have satellite connectivity nowadays. So for emergencies, so make sure you know where you're going.
Just have some redundancy options. It's just, absolutely.
Also, tell people where you're going. That was the other thing I didn't do that day, and that was the thing that was going through my mind, is that there were people at my house, and they were having drinks. It was in the evening. It was about 6:30 p.m. or something, and they were having drinks and having a good time, and they were waiting for me to get home, and then we'll all go to the pub for dinner. But they would have waited 2, 3, 4 hours before they even thought about calling anyone, and even when they did, they wouldn't know where I was. So yeah, you've got to. I don't know. I think now I always tell people where I'm going.
Yeah, and it's good that Phil now has the tattoo where he actually got the fang bites in his leg. So it's a good reminder, and also a good target for next time. We should just come back to this Sector 1. So I do actually have the numbers here. From Mount Zero to the Gar Trailhead, it's officially 15.5 kilometres, and it's 620 metres of vertical ascent and descent. And also, just going through some times here, at this point, the fastest time is Joe Dickinson, set in the event in 2023. Wow. He got a 1 hour, 21 minutes and 41 seconds.
It's flying.
Fastest female time is Simone Brick in the 2024 event, who was doing the 50K, and she got 1:35.09. Jesus. Which is incredibly fast.
It's rapid. Yeah.
I don't think we need to mention our times. I think that I mean, people can do their own Strava sleuthing if they really want to see.
I just made mine private just so I wouldn't show Joe up.
I was going to say, we should mention that this is Strava times.
In 2023, particularly when Joe set that time, we had we like to think of it as rivalry. I don't think it was rivalry for the guys that beat us.
No, it's funny when you're racing against someone who's far faster than you, and you can sort of give them a bit of a nudge and talk a bit of shit, but
Yeah, we did have good banter though. So for people's awareness, Joe was part of a relay team in the 2023 event as well, like doing the stage relay, the same that us three were doing from the
Esk Valley.
Esk Valley,
That's
Esk
the one.
Esk
Yeah.
Valley, Esk Valley Orienteering Club. Very good runners, definitely in a different standard to my running ability, but it was good. The banter was nice, even though, slightly different standards.
Very
The
nice of
banter
those
was good.
guys to mix with the likes of us, I think.
What we lacked in speed, we made up for in age, enthusiasm, and ability to drink pints afterwards.
So as far as like if somebody was coming up to run this this section from Mount Zero to the Gar Trailhead, any thoughts of the best time of day, best season to do it, best conditions to do it?
For me, those summer evenings, I'm not an evening runner. I run in the morning. I don't like running in the evening. I wake up early. I like to run early, and that's just how I do it. But if you're coming here, you want to run in the evening with the sun, Taipan Wall. Like that's a pretty unique experience, and that's one that's what I'd be encouraging people to do.
I'm going to take a little bit of a left field kind of approach to this question, as in the best time to come. And it's kind of a little bit Halls Gap centric. Is the best time to come is probably midweek, because I'm thinking about where are you going to eat afterwards and where are you going to drink afterwards. It's the town's quieter. The Halls Gap gets pretty busy, and so there's tons to do in town before and after your runs. The Halls Gap, to give it an absolute blatant plug, punches so far above its weight, and it just is. The coffee's fantastic. There's food, there's drinks, there's just atmosphere. There's nowhere you'd rather be after a run.
I totally agree, and I probably didn't even think about that aspect, but I've got to say, during the week there's nobody on the trails. Years ago, my experience of Halls Gap has been turn up on a Saturday afternoon, walk to a dusty waterfall that's got nothing flowing over it, and line up at the ice cream shop that maybe the line's 200 metres long, but that was my experience.
Yeah.
And it's like, then
There's more.
you come up midweek or, even stay on a Sunday night. It is just such a amazing place, particularly if you're a trail runner. It's just insane.
I find it almost embarrassing, and even like just as today, like we're sitting here recording on a Friday. We did the Gary Word Trail run this morning. Delicious coffee afterwards. We're sitting out there on the deck, under the mountains, and then planning this podcast. We're down at the Grampians wine cellar, and you've got one of Australia's best sommeliers there. And this is not an exaggeration, just, serving up some outrageous wines. You just can't believe that you're here some days. And the trails, running on these things it's a gift.
I guess this is a spontaneous call out to all trail runners to just move here. See you on a Friday morning for the Gary Word Trail run.
Even with remote working, like what I reckon hasn't taken off, which is interesting, and I don't know why, but the ability, you can get a fair bit of good trail action in here outside of work hours, which we do when you live here. You get up early, might be under head torch, but you get a good, you can get a long run in during the week. You can work here remotely, bring your staff. You're actually getting trail runs in, working during the day. You don't have to take any leave. Plus, you get access to the park without anyone here, all the services, and it's a really good opportunity for people as well, just to experience and get pretty private access to trails.
Yeah, I'm always telling friends who work remotely, if you can get here, then stay during the week and work out of here. In the mornings, do a trail run, do a gravel ride, do a rock climb, whatever you want. But it's just so accessible. It's just there. I wasn't expecting this unofficial plug for coming to Halls Gap, but really it's pretty incredible.
But you know what? When I raced it, I actually don't, because one of my favourite things about that section is the Taipan Wall and that bit at the start, and it just gets you pumped for what you're going to see. But on race day, I didn't even look at it. I remember thinking afterwards, I didn't even look at Taipan Wall. It became this different kind of event. So racing versus just running recreationally, are really different kind of things.
I reckon that's right. There it is a big difference, because when you're racing, you're not quite soaking and as present as you are normally, just experiencing the area, doing these things because you got a job to do, right?
Yeah.
The finish is the outcome, and the experience you get along the way is the sort of the side benefit, but you're not there. So that experience, flat rock taipan wall. I've spent. So I used to be a ranger working here in the national park, and when one of the roles you do on weekends is you go on weekend patrol, which is you go round to all the different parks. And whenever I was on patrol, you'd always rotate through. So you'd get one day on a weekend, you'd do the northern section of the park. And I would always time my trip up north to have lunch up the top of Flat. So I'd hike up, have lunch up the top of Flat Rock, looking at Taipan Wall, and I'd just spend some time there, just being present and looking at it. And it's just a magic part of the park. So encourage everyone, if you do have a bit of time, just to spend a bit of time up there and just absorb what it is. And that's the best thing about trail running / power hiking. If you're not in a rush, you don't have to be. You can push, you can go hard, and there's fun aspects to that. But there's also the aspect of just being in nature, which is one of the things I really love. And that northern part of this northern section, or the first few Ks, I really think's a really magic part of the park.
I think that brings us to a wrap for episode 1. So we'll see everyone for episode 2.
If both of the listeners out there could please give us a thumbs up and a subscribe.
I reckon both's pretty ambitious at this stage, Phil, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, we'll get a few charity listens, I think. But no, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next week.